Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about job flow and job management in this webinar. You are probably here because you have a really good problem. And the problem is you have a lot of work. And so now you're trying to figure out, hey, how do I keep track of all this? And if you're just starting out, it's so good to have a good system in place right from the get-go, but it's never too late either. So if you're well into your business and you feel like there's a lot of jobs coming in and maybe you're losing track of them a little bit, now is the time to get a system going. So in today's webinar, I mostly want to talk about job flow. We will touch a little bit on quoting. But if you can come to the quoting webinar that I do later on in the week, that'd be great. Also look for the recorded webinar on the YouTube channel. If you can't make the quoting webinar, I take a deep dive into how to set everything up for quoting. But again, today we will talk about how to quote within the job. So first we want to talk about is when a customer calls in, what do you do? And we'll come back to the job flow board. This is where all your jobs will land, and this is where you can manage them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute or two. But so if a customer calls in and you're basically going under the jobs tab where you're going to do most of what you do in SignTracker, you go new job, and then you just simply title the job. So for the sake of ease, we're going to say this is a banner job. We're going to write a description in 4x8 banner. Now, if the customer's already in the system, that's great. It's a little type ahead. You select which customer you're going to be working with. If for some reason they're not in the system yet, that's okay. Just start typing their name and you'll choose new company and then go ahead and enter all their information in. And then it'll automatically populate the company's information into the contact section. So it's not like you have to go there and set them all up first, then come back here and start a new job. So this is great if someone's calling in for the first time. Now what we want to do is add a contact. So SignTracker allows you to have multiple contacts in one company. And this is great for, let's say you're doing work for an architect or a school district or a general contractor where you have one company, but you might have, a half a dozen people that order signs or products from you. And what it does in the contact section, if I was to go to ABC Bank here, it's going to show that this is a new job and that it's in the opportunity column. And then it's going to also, if you click into the contact, it's going to also show in his history that you're doing a job for this person. That's great. If you go, you have to come back to a job that you did 6 months ago. Oh, who did I work with there? So you'll have all that history and it'll track it all for you. If it's a product or a service job, that just determines how it shows up on the calendar. So go ahead and select either one. If your shop's big enough where you have a project manager, good for you. If not, then you can either leave this section blank or you can put your name in. I think it's more important if you're a one-person shop or a two-person shop and you're the owner, I think it's really important that you at least tag yourself on every single job as the sales rep. And you'll see why in a few minutes, because you'll actually send contracts out of the system and you want to be able to get alerts if a customer approves a contract. And I'll show you how all that works in a minute or two. If you happen to know a due date, a lot of times you don't know a due date when a job first starts. But if you do know a due date, you can assign it here. If not, there's plenty of places further down the road where you can assign a due date. If the job location or shipping location happens to be different than the job location up here, then you'll go ahead and type it in. If it's the same, you can just leave it blank, but we'll go ahead and enter something in here just so we have it, so you can see where it shows up. Sorry for my very slow typing. I try to avoid doing this, but anyway, I should have paid more attention in typing class, I guess, but we'll fix that. Okay, so now we're going to submit this. And now you've created a job in SignTracker. And basically I like to think of this as an electronic job folder. So it's where you're going to pretty much do everything on a job. Now, a lot of folks will say, hey, for us, it's not a job until a customer actually signs off on a contract or gives us approval or whatever. And I understand that. And at our shop, we basically called everything a job. So it was either an open job or a sold job or a job that was closed out. It really had one of three statuses. And so for SignTracker, we, basically set this up where every time an opportunity comes in, it's technically quote unquote a job. If you lose it, don't worry about it. Well, yeah, you should worry about it, but you can archive it. Don't feel like it's going to take up space. And what's nice about it is you have a place to store notes. So if a customer sends over their logo or some artwork or whatever, it's just one place where everything can go. And even like I said, if you don't get the job and you archive it, you never know when that customer comes back and decides that, oh, I'm going to use you on this next job. I should have went with you to begin with or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that way there you have all the information. So this is your overview. If you are, kind of old school and still want to print a job jacket, hopefully not. The idea of having a system like this is that you don't have to worry about a paper trail anymore. But if you are, you can print this. This activity tracker here is pretty cool. So anything that anybody does in the system will be tracked here. So if you have somebody that completes a task, for example, and we'll talk about tasks here in a few minutes. If you have somebody that moves a job from stage to stage, whether it's moving it here or on the job flow board or on the calendar or on the job list, there's several places where jobs can be moved to the next stage. Then it's going to show up here. You're going to be able to see, hey, Joe moved this job from opportunity to design. And at least that way there, if somebody is, kind of trying to slide their jobs ahead of other jobs, you're going to have a paper trail here or a digital paper trail of who did what. Inside the job is a place where you're going to start assigning tasks to your team members. So this is really important because there is, I'm just going to tell you this little story really fast, but I went to a sign shop not that long ago and sat in an office with the owner, and I was trying to show them how to use SignTracker. And I would say every couple minutes, someone walked in and interrupted us asking, what do I do next? And tasks are a great way to keep your team moving without having to be interrupted all day long, asking, what do I do next? And even for myself. So when I had my last sign shop, I kept the job list view, which I'll show you here in a few minutes, and the task list, my daily task list, open on my computer all the time. And if someone called in and said, hey, I need a paint sample or whatever, I would just do a new task. I would type it up, paint sample. And then if I had to write a little note on it, I could, and I would save it. And then I could assign a due date to it, assign it to myself, and then it would show up on my task list. But where tasks get really useful is if you create these task templates, and they can be simple. They can just be little lists of, hey, here's 4 tasks, right? I get the approval, I print the banner, I install the banner, I collect the final balance. Each of these tasks can be assigned to people in the shop. So I can assign it to a person in the shop. If you have a due date, so let's say we have a due date on this job, we have to get it done by the end of the month. You can start sort of resource managing, right? So I know that if I have to get this project done by the 29th, then I know that I'm going to need the task done by Friday, so that sort of thing. So, and you can go through and assign these tasks. I will say if your shop is small and you're looking at this going, oh man, I got to assign tasks every single time, that's going to be a pain. You can pre-assign these tasks to people. If you have one person that does all the printing or all the designing, you can pre-assign these tasks to that person. And then you can save the task template. So basically to build a task template, you would just go to a blank screen. You can do it in settings too. I just like really doing it on a job, but you go to a blank screen and just start typing out a list of tasks that are for a particular project type, right? And you might just have a generic list of hey, every sign, this list of tasks sort of applies to it. But and then if you forget a task, you can always type in another one and it'll just default down the bottom. You can drag and drop these things if you feel like, okay, now I just brainstormed. I have this whole big list of tasks. Now I'm going to put them in order that makes best sense. And it really doesn't matter in a way because they do show up under each person's when they log into the task list. And I'll show you here in a sec. But I know visually for me, I like to be able to see them in order. And then once you have a task list all laid out, all you got to do is save it. Save it, name it, save it as a template. Next time you use it, it'll be applied to the job. And then after you actually build a task list, if you want, go back in, like I said, pre-assign all these tasks to folks that you know that you maybe do it over and over again, the same thing, design, printing, whatever. And then you can just save it again as, banner with team. But anyway, I'm going to delete these really fast because I want to show you these task lists can be really helpful. And you should have a few task templates pre-built into the system. And they can be edited, of course. Just apply it to a job, change whatever you want on it, and then save it again. But we used this constantly, especially on bigger projects. So we did a lot of apartment complexes and monument signs and those sorts of things in my shop. So, for us, a lot of times projects would go on for a few months, so we might have a due date that is the end of April. And then, we would start planning this job, and they can be, again, pretty extensive lists. You could start with the initial meeting with the client to talk about design, scope, and then doing code checks all the way down to getting landlord approvals and collecting deposits, permit acquisition, all the stuff. And then all the way down to finally completing the job and, sending a nice thank you note and completion photos and the final invoice off to the client. And again, all these tasks can be pre-assigned to people. Next, you have notes. I use the heck out of this. One thing I did a lot of is I use Gmail. And so for me, I'm old school, but I would get these long threads, of conversations I'd be having with clients. And then in the middle of that thread, it would say, yes, Joe, the size change is approved, or this extra $200 is approved. So I just got in the habit of, copying and pasting the whole email. So I'd say, hey, this is a change order that was approved. And then I would copy and paste the header and footer, everything in an email, and just paste it right in here. And then I would have it. So you can have as many notes as you want. Again, on the activity tracker, it's going to show that Joe made a note, and you can edit these. You can change the titles, whatever you want. You can have as much, much information on the body of the note as you want. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Attachments, really cool feature in SignTracker. So if you're using an external drive, and a lot of times when you're using an external drive, it's for an active job, it might not be so bad. But when you're starting to go back 6 months, 8 months, and you're trying to find files for a job that you completed, it's so nice in SignTracker because you have all the files that will stay with the project forever. And so even things like completion photos, survey photos, if you do that sort of thing, if you deal with permits, getting a copy of the permit as a PDF and putting it in here. So basically you can either drag and drop. Each of these files can be up to a gig, and you can have as many files on the job as you want. So historically, it's just, it's really great to be able to go and look for this job in the archive 6 months from now, and everything's right there. And then you can take it out of archive and clone it, whatever you want to do. But so basically just click here, and you can, like I said, you can drag and drop, or you can simply, just upload the files from navigating here. So I'm going to select these sample files here. Now, if you use Adobe Illustrator, CorelDRAW, whatever it is you use to design, you can SVG files, Photoshop files, AI files. They will PDFs especially. They will all give you a thumbnail view. So if you are using a program like Flexi for doing your designs, I would just encourage you to save that as a PDF. And then upload it here. And of course, all the vector will be saved anyway. So once you have all these in here, instead of a folder structure, we came up with a tagging structure. So let's say, for example, this was, this is the design, the elevation design that you received from the client. And so from here, we can go edit, and then we can write it. First of all, we can change the name of it if we want to. We can write a description, elevation, placement file, whatever you want to put on here. Then you can add a tag, and you could say, okay, this is, this is for, whatever. This is the, final production file, we'll call it. And we'll save it. And then that's been saved successfully. And then we'll go back here and we'll say this is a logo file. And we'll add another tag here for logo. So you can, it's basically like a folder structure. So the idea is, you have all these different files here. Now, if I'm the person that's running the printer, I could see my task on my task list that says, hey, print this file today. And then they can click right from the task list to this job, go to attachments, click final production, gets rid of everything else. And then they can go ahead and use this file to print. The other thing I should say too is a lot of SignTracker is mobile friendly. We're slowly but surely kind of working through the app to make sure that it's responsive on mobile. Some of it still needs some work, but everything you see here inside this job, and especially the menus and the search feature and all that, that's really mobile friendly. So if you're in the field, you can use this, either the search, open up SignTracker on your browser. You can use the search feature or the drop-down menu. Come to this job, take all your survey photos or completion photos or whatever it is that you want to do. And then you can just click your thumb on this little gray square, navigate to your camera, upload all your photos. And I know for me, like I would do surveys in the field. You can do surveys digitally too, but I would basically just have a clipboard with survey forms and usually like graph paper and take all my survey notes. And I would actually take pictures of all those and upload them straight to the field, from the field, upload them with my survey photos. So now we get to quoting. So actually, before we get to the quoting, the contracts and the quoting worksheets, let's just take a peek at the forms and the sign templates. So with the forms, there are a ton of forms in here. So I would encourage you to take a half hour or whatever, go through them and see, how they could help your shop. These were all the forms that we used for managing projects at our shop. So, and we've added some forms over the years that we've had feedback from sign shops. So I think there's a ton in here that could be really useful. There's work orders, there's survey forms and landlord approval letters and all that. And if you just click it, basically, so this list is the form bank. But if you fill this out and if you have an iPad, you can fill this out in the field, which is really nice. But just select what type it is. If say you were going out to the field to do a face change on a cabinet, so it's going to pull in the information from the job. You could see what kind of the retainers with the square or radius. You can make extra notes, and then you submit it. And then what you do is you connect. So what happens is from here it does go back to your job. So let's go over there. Okay, so once you've hit submit form, what you'll do is you'll come back to the project and you'll see that the completed form is under the completed form section. So really what you're seeing here is just a bank of the templates. The only thing I would say is you do have to, if you go to your extension manager, I use Chrome. So there's, I'm sure, Firefox or whatever, all the different, all the different browsers have the same thing. So whatever browser it is you're using, then go to the extension manager and download the Adobe Acrobat extension. It's free. Add it to your browser. And then that way there, all of these forms are completely usable on your browser. So if I opened up, a work order or change order or whatever, the survey sheet I just showed you, again, you just open it up. It opens up in your browser. You fill it out any way you want. You hit submit, and then it drives it back over to the completed job. So I'll just do it one more time just so you see it. Go OK, and then you can close out of these forms, and then it'll land on completed forms. So that's how the forms work. Next, we have sign templates. So a lot of you folks might already have a bank of sign templates, but we found that a lot of sign shops don't. So we did everything from simple signs with banners, all different configurations. If you open these up, you can download them, you can edit them. They're all vectored. So this is a pretty valuable thing to have in SignTracker. And we did some simple ones. So if you do, yard signs, but then if you do everything from flat cutout letters, there's templates for that, all different wall mounting types, channel letters, especially pretty much every configuration of channel letter that you can imagine, and including all the different mounting methods for different wall types. Even for, let's see, we'll do another one, monument signs. What's nice is too, if you open this up, there's cross cuts, so you can see all this for permitting. Matter of fact, after we went live with these things, a few days later, I got a phone call from one of the sign shops that said, "Hey man, I just landed a channel letter job." And they said that they gave the job to us because our drawings looked so professional. The technical portion of the drawings looked so professional, so they actually get a job out of it. So anyway, these can be, all the text is live text, all the graphics are vectored, can be changed, edited any way you want. All right, let's go to the quoting. So all the quoting happens inside of a job. So if the client calls in, we're still talking about the same client here. So don't feel like, oh man, that's a lot to get to quoting. I mean, we just wanted to talk about all the different things you can do to manage your jobs inside SignTracker. But quoting, you could basically start a new job, capture a little bit of information about the customer, go straight to contracts, go new contract. And then in here is where you're going to start building quoting worksheets. So line items. So this is a quoting worksheet, and then you add line items to it. And then those quoting worksheets are stored in the quote worksheet tab. So you can have, especially if you do large scale projects, if you do small banners or whatever, that's fine. That's great. Just one-offs. But if you do large scale projects, you can have one contract that you send, hey, we're doing a monument sign, we're doing a wall sign on the building, and then we're doing, 50 different types of signs inside the building. And then even you can have multiple contracts too. So if you have, let's say you have a customer that says, yeah, you know what, I want a separate contract, still the same job number, but I want a separate contract for the monument sign, and then I want, I want a contract for the sign that's on the building and on the interior signs. You can split them up like that any way you want. But basically, what you do in this worksheet is you add line items. This first one is a copy of the master template, and so you'll see that if you come to the webinar on setting up quoting. But the master template, this is just a blank worksheet. And so you can just randomly add whatever materials, control whatever markup you want. Materials are going to show up in the drop-down menu, because that's all these templates really are. They're item categories, and then you select what you want in the drop-down menus and what the markup is. So you can add your labor items. You can add formula items, things like $5 a square foot for a banner, $10 in upright ins for a channel letter set. Special order items might be things like Gemini letters or a banner stand. Subcontract, that might be things like hiring an auger to dig a hole, or hiring a guy with a bucket truck to go up and install a banner for you. Excuse me. And then you have commissions. If you have salespeople, you can have commissions, discounts. Hopefully you never have to use that. But if you did, you can have a percentage amount or a dollar amount, and it basically just takes that evenly off of each of the categories that have items in them. Taxes. Now your taxes will sync from QuickBooks. So if you're syncing with QuickBooks, whether it's desktop or online, you will see that under the admin section. And I'll show you a little bit more about that if you come to the quoting webinar, but it's pretty easy. And then you can have all your taxes will show up. If you're not syncing with QuickBooks, no problem at all. Just when you're setting up your items, which your items are materials, labor, or formula items, you'll actually manually have to set up your own taxes. But then then they show up in the drop-down menus. You put a description here of, hey, a 4x8 banner, blah, 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 whatever it is you're selling. You name the worksheet. The customer does not see these notes and details. So if you go to, a special order item, and you can put part numbers or whatever, and then you just save it, and then it adds a line item to the worksheet. Now this is where SignTracker really gets great and helps to solve the problem of you're the only person with the pricing in their head, and you're the only person that can break out the spreadsheet and do quotes. You can build quoting templates that anybody in the shop can use, as long as they looking at a drawing and they know they're quoting a 4x8 banner or a 5x10 banner, you can build out templates for every sizes. You can build out templates for yard signs, but I'll show you what they look like. So basically you would just have, your materials would already be listed. If you sold banners by the square foot, you can set these up as a formula item quote worksheet, but then you'd have your labor items and you can make any changes you want inside the job. It doesn't hurt the template that you created. This is just a copy of it. If you have a salesperson, you can already have that in. You can add more up charges like rush charges or whatever. If you have things, we used to use this a lot for permits, engineering, surveys, but if you have things that are standard on every single job that you do and you want to put them down here and it'll break it out down the bottom of the quote that you give to the customer rather than have it baked into the sign price, if you want to kind of itemize those things. Definitely useful for surveys, permit acquisition, engineering. If you do those types of projects, having those extras line itemed down the bottom of the contract was great because it wouldn't inflate the price of the sign. If the sign was $2,000, but yet the fees were another $1,000, at least you were able to show the customer like, hey, this is the stuff the city requires. And then of course you can have it default, when you're doing a quote worksheets to whatever your local tax is, but you could change it. So if you're doing, this job and it's a nonprofit or a church or something like that, you can just get rid of the tax, or you could select a tax item, tax exempt or whatever. And then when you're building these templates, you would already have a really nice description. So you'd go ahead and, if you needed to adjust it or change it, you could. Again, it won't hurt the template. Make some notes. The customer doesn't see these notes. And then you save it. And so what happens is it adds a line item to the worksheet. And then you can add another one if you want to do yard signs or whatever. You can have as many products on one quote as you want. This is really great. If you, let's say this particular one that you just did, it's a 4x8 banner and it's being installed on the front of the building, but there's an opportunity to put a temporary banner on the back of the building or on the side of the building, and it's a little different size. You can clone this one rather than starting from scratch, make any little adjustments you want, save it, it'll add another line item. You can also pull quote worksheets from other jobs. So let's say you do, you do a lot of wraps, right? And you did a box truck wrap on a job a couple months ago, and another one comes in and it's pretty darn close to what you just did a month ago or a couple months ago. You can find that quote worksheet from another job and pull it up here, make any adjustments you want, save it, and it's going to add another line item to this worksheet. So it's really cool. So that's why it's a really good idea to name your worksheets, by the product type, because it'll be easier to find them if you're just trying to brainstorm and think of product type templates. But certainly if you remember the job or the customer, it's easy to just find it, clone it, use it, and apply it. But anyway, so once you have all your all your, quote line items on a contract, on a worksheet rather, then we're ready to convert it to a contract. So here, you can put things like, hey, we'll need access to the inside of the space, or whatever it is that you want to say. Thank you very much for your business. And then you can, if you wanted to rename this something, you'd save it. And then what it does, it creates a contract that can be now sent off to the customer. So for now, we are working on a complete approval portal for drawings and everything. So for now, you would have to you could either download this as a PDF, send it in an email to your customer, or you can just click this custom link and then open up your email browser and just type in, hey, Joe, here is the link to your quote. And so when the customer clicks the link, they will see this, and it gives them the opportunity to review it. They can sign it. They can adopt a signature and go ahead and approve it. If they don't approve it, of course, it'll send you an email why, so they can, you can make whatever adjustments you want. But once that happens, it comes back to the system. I'm going to go ahead and, if you do it in email, it does actually do it a little bit more automatic, so I'm going to force it. It'll mark this as approved. Now, if whoever that person was in the beginning that we tagged as the salesperson or the project manager, both of those folks are going to get emails that say, hey, Joe just approved his quote for the banner. And then from there, you can start moving it through production. And if you're syncing with QuickBooks, there is going to be a blue button here that says Generate Invoice. You click that, and it's going to allow you to match these line items to whatever your sales category line items are in QuickBooks. And it will send this over to QuickBooks just like this with all the details and all these details and automatically generate an invoice for you. Now, if this customer is not in QuickBooks yet, after you've done the initial syncing with QuickBooks, you don't have to worry about entering them in QuickBooks. SignTracker will try to find the customer. If it doesn't see it there, we'll create the customer for you, then generate the invoice under that new customer's history. So basically, SignTracker is where you're going to enter all your contacts in moving forward. So, all right. So now let's talk about, now that we've talked about all the things that you can manage inside of a job, let's talk about how the system allows you to manage all the jobs. So there's a couple views of the jobs. There's either the job flow board, which I know a lot of sign shops love. And then there was my personal favorite, the job list view, because I'm a list guy for sure. But let's talk about the job flow board. So the job flow board, the idea is that you move these jobs through stages of production, right? So it's design, quote, pending approval, pre-production, and pre-production, of course, might be, you can put blocks on jobs. So let's say you were pending a permit or you had some materials that were back ordered. All you got to do is hit this little thing, put it on hold, type in the reason, and it's going to put a big red border around it. So you know that, hey, we're ready to make this thing, but we're still waiting to get some materials. And if you want to prioritize your jobs based on, let's say, the printer might be available for a couple of small jobs this morning. Let's get those knocked out super quick so we can get them through the system and get paid, because this is going to tie the printer up. This job's going to tap the printer for an entire day. So you basically are prioritizing based on your resource availability or what's most important to you. It could be that this customer right here is your favorite customer, buys a ton of stuff from you, always pays on time, respects your quotes and all that, and pays, what you quote. And so you might want to prioritize that way. But it's really you're choosing to organize these jobs by what you know is most important. And if you're hardcore, first in, first out, you can always sort these columns out by due date as well. But the goal is to work, get these jobs, kind of work them through the system and get them all the way down to the closeout stage. And you can change these columns. If you just double click on the name, you can change it whatever you want. You want to add more columns, insert column after this column. If you want to rearrange them, you can just put your cursor right underneath the name and drag and drop them. So it's pretty unlimited. But for us, we had this closeout column, and every time a job was completed, anybody could move a job into closeout. So if you have different people that are managing projects, or if you're the owner and you're just managing projects, anybody can move it into closeout. And what that meant to us was that the customer was happy and it was ready for final billing. And so the controller, the bookkeeper at that point would go ahead and every day she would see what was in this column and knew that it was ready for billing. And then she would put it on hold and she would mark it, invoice 3. And then she knew that final invoice had been sent out. And then once that payment was received, or it was through credit card or a check coming in the mail or whatever, however you have your terms with your clients, she would be the only one that would unblock it and move it into archive. Now the archive column is only going to show the last 10 jobs. And after that, you can just look in the archives. Also, each client contact page does keep a history. If you were just going to look at a client, you said, hey, I did this job with this client, I want to go find it. There's multiple ways to find your archive jobs. The other thing about the job flow board that's really cool is you don't have to see all the columns. So let's say you're a person that only deals with production and you don't want to see opportunity, design, quote, pending approval. Not that it's not bad to take a peek at that once in a while because you can see what's coming down the pipeline, but you can change your views. So I can come here and I can say, well, I only want to see production. And so what it's going to do, it's going to hide the columns that that you don't want to see. And anybody can set up their own view and save it as their default view. So that's how that works. And then there's a couple of things, if you want to see cards that are, smaller, this little gear icon up here, you can hit that. If you do have sales reps and project managers, you can see the aging of when the job was created. Show full description. I'll show you what that is here. And this is just a color preference if you want to see a darker color on the job cards. But the show full description, basically what that is if you want to use this to really write notes or create live links to, let's say you want to create a live link to a permit code or a special material that you're ordering on this project, you can do that, or subcontractor that you're using, you can do that. And then when you save it, the live links will show up here. But then also, this can go on and on. I've seen some folks that have really long job cards because they like to see all that when they're looking at the board. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just that your cards can get pretty long, but that's just a preference. So you can also change, due dates from here. It'll update it on the calendar. It'll update it on the job list view. You can also see if you have open tasks on job, how many attachments are on the job. If there's notes on the job, you can see all that from here. And if you click it, obviously it'll take you to it. And then in any of these headers, if you just click it, it opens the job where we just went through. And here's one, for example, when you can see all the different, everything that's happening on the job and who made the changes and all that. Okay, so I love the job flow board for production meetings. And so I would encourage you, if you can put this up on a big screen in your shop and people can get a sense of what's coming, it kind of creates a sense of urgency, right? Like this is what's coming down the pipeline. I think it's super useful for that. I also think if you're not having production meetings in your shop, I know some shops, they are on it. Every morning they have a production meeting, go. I think that's awesome. For our shop, we would have a production meeting, a big one, and it was Monday after lunch. And we would go through each and every job card and just kind of talk about where things were at. I mean, some would skip some, obviously, if it didn't, if everything was on track and we knew it. But for the most part, we would try to touch every single job. And then Thursday, we would right at about 10 o'clock in the morning. So right after the day got started and everyone had enough coffee, we would meet again and we would go through things that were blocking the job from moving, right? Like, why is this permit still pending? And look, it's causing the job to be late. We're not hitting our dates, And again, you can change these due dates from here too. Okay, so that's the job flow board. The other view of the jobs is job list view. It's pretty self-explanatory. I liked it because I'm a list guy. So for me, if I would sort these out and be like, okay, I'm going to work on, I have 15 jobs in my opportunity column. Oh, this guy just said that this one's dead. It's not happening. So right from here, I could archive it. If I needed to change a due date, I could change a due date from here. It was great. If I just wanted to see, if you have several people that work on jobs, you can, sort out, just your jobs. And then again, you can sort the stages out if you wanted to just work on your opportunities. So I liked the list view because I feel like you could get to jobs very quickly. Also, if you go to the job name, I'm on a Mac, so it's Command, it's Control on PC. But if I want to hit, this job and hold down my Command key, it opens up a brand new tab. Then I can get in here. I can do whatever I need to do on this job. Great. Sounds good. I'm done. It added a few tasks, made some notes, attached the file. I'm done playing with it. Then I can go to the next job, the next job, next job. So the other thing I wanted to show you under the jobs tab, because really the jobs tab is where you're going to do almost everything in SignTracker. You do have your task list. So again, if I'm logged in as myself, so any of your team members that are logged in, they can come here, it'll automatically default to them. They can look at jobs that are just happening today or this week or next week. They can look at jobs that are happening that in any status whatsoever or just active jobs. And then they can just see what they had to do for today. So if you were really using this and you just selected today, it's going to just give everyone an exact list of what they have to do on every single job. And they can, let's say something gets bumped, right? A client bumped a meeting, right from there, a salesperson or customer care person could bump this task, give it a little extra time. They can make a note right here that says, customer needs more time, save it. And so that's going to, obviously that note and this change is going to show up in the activity tracker on the job. And then what's great is now this person is going to be reminded that they have to follow up on this on March 8th. They'll also get an email reminder too. And if you're a person that's, let's say running the printer, like I said earlier, I can just go, let's say this was like, print banner, and I'm the person that prints the banner. I can just click it right from here. I can go to the job. I can go to attachments. I can look at my final production. This is the one I have to print. If there was a note on it, it would show up here, and bam, I would print the banner. So tasks are great. I had the task list open, my job list open all day, bouncing back and forth between the both. And it really, really helped me to organize my job. It stopped the feeling I was losing track of things. That's for sure. Individually because of tasks, but overall with the job flow board and the job list, every job lived somewhere and I could physically see it. So that's pretty much a good overview of what you can do with jobs in SignTracker. I'll show you a few other things here. Contacts, again, once you tag a job, if you're inside that job, again, if it's like an architect or design firm or general contractor, you're going to see all the jobs you've ever done with this organization here. But you can have multiple people that you work with there. If I click that, it's going to show you the jobs that you did with just that individual. So, and also that it will also show you too, not that you can see this on the list, obviously you could sort the job list out or the job flow board for that matter, by customer, but it's nice to see it here too. So you could see, okay, I got 2 opportunities for this particular company. One's in production, one's in closeout. We're waiting for payment. And then here's the archive. So calendar. Some folks love living off a calendar view. I get it. It's fine. You can drag and drop these jobs. You can open them. You can go to the jobs from here. If I drag a job to a new date, it's going to update it on the job flow board, on the job list. It's going to update it through the entire system. You can also all your tasks, so you can see tasks on any job. If for some reason you would rather see all your tasks on a calendar, you can go to the job task from here, just like you can on the task list. And this is printable. You can see it a week view, day view, and you can have multiple different categories, and it's a shared calendar so everyone can see it. But if you don't, if you don't want to see it, you can shut things off. You can also create things like sales meetings and production meetings. It just basically works like a regular calendar. You can select a category for this particular thing. You can make it an all-day event, or you can add time to it. Once you submit it, you can invite people in the shop. They'll get email reminders. You can invite people outside of the shop if you wanted to. So if you had a meeting with the vendor or whatever. The dashboard. So in the dashboard, you can see, this is basically a snapshot of all the stages of production on the job flow board, but you can start to see things that are passed through. Like, I have 3 jobs that are in design. They're stuck. What's going on? Go talk to the designer. Do they need help? Do you need to outsource some of it? Whatever. Same with opportunity. A lot of times opportunity you don't have due dates, but at least you can see where things might be getting stuck in the system. Any job that you're associated with is going to show up here. It's kind of like a mini version of the job list view. They're just jobs that you're associated with though. So they'll show up here. You can also see any events that aren't jobs. So like if you have sales meetings or production meetings or whatever, they're going to show up here. And obviously if I had one today, which looks like I do, then that's going to show up here. Over here, there are links to our training videos. That's our YouTube channel, recorded webinars. So I'll be uploading this webinar, for example, there. We do have a Facebook group. We'll oftentimes make announcements of things that are happening with SignTracker. If we're, launching a new feature or whatever, that's going to be there. And then our Behind the Signs community, encourage you, if you're not there already, to join. It's a great group. It's primarily sign shop owners, and 90% of them. And there's really a good kind of a support system there. We have community chats, and they're on fire all the time, where people are asking questions about, how do I quote this, or where do I get this material, or what do you suggest about fabricating this? And sign shops are really helping each other there. So encourage you, if you haven't joined Behind the Signs. There's also some really cool files there that aren't in SignTracker that you can download for free. You'll see the little file section, but I'd encourage you to join Behind the Signs. And again, Facebook at Behind the Signs. And then my live webinars that I do, so like the one you're at today. You're welcome to come to any of them, whether you're exploring SignTracker for the first time, or maybe you have a new hire and you're thinking, man, it would be so great if there was an easier way to train that person. Get them to one of my webinars, and we'll kind of go through what we're doing today. And again, if you can come to the quoting webinar, that's great. I basically take a deep dive into how to get the materials, labor, and formula items all set up, and how to create the quoting templates. And so I'll go over all that with you very slowly in great detail, so you'll know. We'll talk a little bit about how to do the integration with QuickBooks as well. So anyway, that is a wrap for the SignTracker project management tools that will help you keep track of all your jobs. And so again, whether you're brand new and you're just starting, it's never too early to get a project management system in place that'll help you stay on top of your jobs. And it's never too late. If you already have a bunch of jobs and you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, awesome problem to have, but let's get them in a system. It creates a work environment that's a little bit calmer for your team. And also overall, if you're ever thinking about selling your company, it helps to increase the value of your company if you can show that you've had a really solid system in place to track all your work. So anyway, thank you again, everybody, for joining me today. I'm Joe, and if you have any questions or need support, please hit our little chat tool down here, and we'll help you out. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon. Thanks so much for checking out SignTracker, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on YouTube.